All right, good afternoon, everybody. Event Trader here. Let's keep an eye on markets as we go into the close. We talked about that bounce off the 50-day moving average, and getting up. I told you that 2960 area probably be tough sledding to get through. We are approaching that though, so I've gotten about 10 points, 11 points off the lows. Some late day buying as the 50-day Um, is defended here. Just thought I would chart out with the comment. Talking about weakness today, maybe spun on all about the Chinese investment theme, but the evolution of the impeachment process and the implications from both Trump and Biden negative, and the fact that a serious left candidate with significant and growing share of support appears to be Elizabeth Warren might start to entertain the idea of some long-term money is leaving the stock market as it considers the Warren cabinet agenda might look like. It's something that I was talking about earlier, and Brett's kind of repeating this. The selling's going to be blamed on these China headlines, but I really do think that the bigger theme at play here is the Warren looking into the debt markets that could really rattle some people, especially as we said with the trending in the markets here with poll results. So it's going to be a story we're going to look into a little bit deeper over the weekend and get back to you. But obviously that is going to be something for us to watch, and it's going to be an overhang in the markets moving forward, in my opinion. So with that in mind, want to run through the 1538 comment that I just posted, the week ahead. Get you all ready for what we should be on the lookout for, what's on the calendar, and some other things of note. First, going through the key themes here. U.S. economic data, always going to be a big item, of course, but really with the Fed, we've seen plenty of discussions on the bulls, the doves and the hawks, but the underlying core of the Fed is a centrist, with the idea of going meeting to meeting and looking at the data, and thus always makes the U.S. econ data the most important thing out there in terms of monetary policy, as per usual, I suppose. But with a lot of Fed speakers out, the key is going to be how they react to some of this econ data. So I want to lay that out first. Starting on Monday, I'm just going to go through the entire macro here, so we got that laid out. We get the Chicago PMI numbers, obviously a sentiment data report for September, so curious to see how that falls in. Sentiment data has been generally a little bit better than expected for the most part. Tuesday, we get the market manufacturing PMI revision and the ISM manufacturing. Obviously want to see if we fall below a 50 number there. We will also get construction spending that day, and a slew of Fed speakers as well. We got Evans, Clarida, Bullard, Bowman, all voters. So that'll be a big Fed speak day, and of course we're getting vehicle sales as well. Wednesday, we get the MBA mortgage applications as per usual. September ADP numbers come out that day too, setting us up for that Friday jobs report and EIA crude inventories. And then we get the Fed's Williams speaking as well. Thursday, we get Fed Evans speaking again. Initial claims, we get the market services PMI number, the August factory orders, and September ISM services. Service numbers could be a little bit bigger this time around. We've talked a lot about the consumer being the pillar of the economy. If we start seeing that falter and following manufacturing lower, then that could certainly start weighing in on market sentiment here. We also get nat gas that day, of course. Fed's Quarles and Clarida speaks again. Quarles, a voter, of course, as well. Everybody that's speaking next week actually is a voter, at least that's on the calendar speaking anyway. Friday, of course, the big September jobs report. I'll be curious to see any commentary in the ISM and PMI numbers on that. We discussed the PMI report earlier this week with how I was a little cautious around some of the hiring going on, and that will have me curious just to see what happens in this September jobs number. Week number here would set the stage for Powell, who will be speaking about an hour and a half after that hits. And that day we also have Esther George speaking, the Kansas City Fed president, who of course dissented against the 25 basis point cut. So some interesting speakers next week, all voters and people that we want to be paying attention to. Next up on our key themes here, before we jump back into earnings, is China closed for the majority of the week. They are closed from October 1st through October 7th, so we will get a peek into their reaction to this these reports about China holding back investment in the region, or about the U.S. holding back investment in the region. So curious to see what kind of reaction we get. Also, with them closed, this leads us right up into the next round of trade talks too. So going to be curious to see what kind of activity we see there. Certainly want to keep a close eye on the yuan. Don't be surprised to see some sort of reserve requirement action by the PBOC or something in order to pump in liquidity into the system. This is pretty typical for China when they have a week-long holiday. They do it for the Chinese New Year. So I would be cautious of reading too much into any sort of monetary reaction from the PBOC. And then if we want to take a look at earnings next, it's not a busy week of earnings, but we do get Pepsi, which will be the first September end report. So obviously that'll be of interest for us here. We also get Calmine Foods. It's the egg play that I was talking about yesterday when I was looking at Camp. Thor Industries, which is of course the RV play. Been a rough space to say the least, and been a downward trend, so just keeping an eye out on that. We get McKesson, MKC, so another look at some staples here. It's been one of the stronger staple plays though, so curious to see if it could hold these gains. Stitch Fix, relatively recent, well, I guess we can't really say recent IPO now, because seeing as it would have been out, wow, it's 2017 since that came out. This is a name that's holding down near these IPO lows, so I want to see if it could hold above that. It opened up for trade at right around 1690 back in November of 2017, so that's going to be a key level for that to hold. We get AYI out as well, keeping an eye out on, of course, Cree had a pretty weak round of results, so curious to see if the lighting company Acuity Brands can hold this 120 level. Definitely teetering on that. Lennar, another strong home builder, they'll be reporting results. PayX, payment provider, out, been a steady upward trend for PayX. Curious to see if they could hold their gains. Bed Bath and Beyond, one of the out of favor retailers that we've been talking a lot about this being a value trap, and I don't think anybody's opinion has changed on that. Constellation Brands, STZ, give us a little bit of insight into the tariffs that are impacting some of the retailers here. It's been on a steady upward trend since hitting its 200-day moving average. We'll be curious to see if it could hold on to that. ASNA expected to report earnings too. Another beaten down retail name, I believe Scalp Trader's been involved with this one. Costco, one of the stronger stocks out there in the markets, they'll be out Thursday. And then we got SGH. It's been a focus of some short reports. This is Smart Global Holdings, Brazilian semi play. So stock's recently broken down below its 50-day moving average. It'll set up for a key test going in next week to emerging market appetites for people. Taking a look at the international side of things, over the weekend we'll get the Bank of Japan summary of opinions, as well as Japan industrial production numbers and retail sales. We will also get that China manufacturing PMI and services PMI numbers, and also, starting off for the week, I'm not expecting it on over the weekend, but the WTO Airbus ruling is expected at some point this week to see what kind of pressure the U.S. could apply in response to these tariffs. Looking at Monday, German retail sales is notable here, as well as their unemployment number. UK will have a busy session with current account, Q2 GDP, mortgage approvals, get a Eurozone unemployment rate. Our neighbors to the north, Canada, have their inflation data. Then on Monday night, we get the Asia Pacific manufacturing PMIs, as well as the Japan Tonkin survey. So some good sentiment data from the region there. And Australia's Reserve Bank of Australia has their interest rate decision, looking for a cut. Tuesday, we get Australia commodity price commentary, the Euro area manufacturing PMIs, as well as Eurozone CPI number. Germany's Jens Wiedmann's going to be speaking too, so be curious to hear what he has to say. Wednesday, we get the Japan consumer confidence number, as well as UK construction PMI, Australia trade balance, which is always a key read for global trade. Thursday, Germany will be closed as well as China, so it should be a pretty low volume day on that day. We'll get the Eurozone service PMI numbers. Not sure if Germany's going to be out that day, so I'll have to double check that. Eurozone PPI and retail sales are also due that day. And Australia will be busy that night with some new home sales, retail sales, and the RBA financial review. Friday, pretty slow day, which really clears the deck for jobs and PAL. We got Canada trade balance and the Ivy PMI. Taking a look at some of the conferences of interest, there's a European Bank Financial Services Conference that I'll be curious to see what's going on there. Capital Links has a shipping conference. Credit Suisse will have some minerals at play. Xilinx, one of the weaker semi-plays, is a developer forum there. Moving on, Wednesday kicks off Wolf's Utility and Energy Conference. Cantor Fitzgerald's holding a healthcare conference for a few days. Clorox has an analyst day with Microsoft holding a product event that session, as well as Vive and holding their own investor day. One of the stronger stocks over the last few months. Curious to see what they have to say. Then finally Thursday, B. Riley's kicks off their FBR Consumer and Media Conference. Wanted to see who's playing there, but obviously some weakness in the media names going on. Canaccord Genuity's got their cannabis conference, and Macquarie is holding a green energy conference. Taking a look ahead to some of the events in October. After this week, of course, we got those U.S.-China trade talks, October 7th through the 11th. We've got October 15th, Q3 earnings season really kicks underway with the banks. Also that day, the Democratic debate set to start, and the U.S. is set to raise tariffs on China. Obviously, we'll have to see how those trade talks go to see how they decide to press forward with that. October 17th through the 18th, we got an EU Leaders Summit. October 18th, a slew of Chinese economic data, including industrial production, retail sales, and their GDP numbers. October 18th through the 20th is the IMF World Bank meetings. We'll be looking for the IMF World Outlook. My assumption is that we'll be pretty cautious. I'll find out the exact days that that's set to go. October 21st, Canadian elections are set to go. October 24th is the next ECB meeting. This is, of course, the last one under Draghi, and we'll also get preliminary PMIs that day. October 30th, we get the FOMC meeting. October 31st, the BOJ, and I should add in Brexit, but I got to double check to see if that's still on the agenda. But that is what we are looking at for the week ahead, and the month ahead for that matter, too, some of the bigger events. So, again, I'll post this to the site. If you get a chance, please review. Let's see, somebody just writing in. Somebody asking about the bounce here with the ES 4-hour on the 200. Does that have any coincidence? I think it just is a coincidence with the 50-day. From my opinion, that's the larger watched one. The 4-hour one, that works out well with this timing, but I'm going off the 50-day myself. But I know people do use that 4-hour chart, so it certainly could be at play here. But just watching futures, we did get up to 29.64 before pulling back a little bit, probably set off some stops that were up there for anybody that jumped in on the shorts right around that lunch hour. And that's going to have what we look at going into the close, decent close for the Bulls, but overall a weaker session, of course. It's going to have people cautious, really curious to see what's going on Sunday night. I'll be online Sunday night just prepping for the week, so if I see anything of interest, I'll be sure to point it out to people. But that is going to do it for us for the week. I hope everybody has a great weekend. Stay safe, and we will talk to you soon.